In today's video, we're going to talk about why Wolverine's backstory in Deadpool and Wolverine didn't hit as hard as it could have done. And also we're going to talk about further plans of how the Kang's Dynasty was actually going to happen and how they were going to introduce Immortus and build up the Council of Kangs before we got to what would have been Avengers 5. Although this alleged plot has been scrapped, they could technically still use parts of it for Avengers Doomsday. And based on the comments of the last video we did, the scrapped plans for Kang's Dynasty, I think some people will actually enjoy these alleged plans for Immortus, so on and so forth. But the plans that they originally had for Deadpool and Wolverine, in terms of Wolverine's backstory, if it's true, this would have made Deadpool and Wolverine so much better. So, yo, what is freaking good YouTube? What's you have your new animated graphics? Never miss any of the Marvel, DC, Kaiju, Monsterverse, pop culture based content that I try to cover on a daily basis. If you could, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, and let me know. Are you actually excited for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because there's no Marvel content coming for such a long time. So if you could, check us out on Instagram at Warstu to see the beautiful face behind the beautiful voice. And also you could check us out on Twitter, Warstu. Right, let's get into it. So it's worth saying, I no longer give any scooper precedence over anyone else. I put everyone on the same wavelength now. Why? Because even the biggest so-called scoopers get stuff wrong. So they're all on the same level to me now. And I cover everything on this channel. So I find this information would have been pretty cool if it turned out to be true. So apparently the reason why Wolverine's backstory in Deadpool and Wolverine didn't leave an emotional mark on the audience, I mean, that's true. It kind of did a little bit, but not as much as it could have done. It's because his backstory was changed several times during production and reshoots. Obviously, studios are never going to make out they changed stuff. They're never going to make out there was issues. But as we know, the writer's strike happened during this movie. We know that a lot of this movie was changed at some point. The original backstory for this Wolverine was supposed to mirror the original plans for X-Men 97 Season 2. It was envisioned that this Wolverine X-Men team had come into conflict with the Council of Kangs. And seeing as this was supposed to be a multiversal movie, was supposed to set up some massive kind of threat, and then we get to the press junkets, and they kept saying this is a standalone movie, but it didn't make sense to me. There was something missing. Ryan Reynolds even trolled the mandated post-credit scene. The only thing that was missing in Deadpool Wolverine was it didn't really set up anything. Yeah, I get it. X-23, Wolverine, Gambit. It didn't really set up anything. So the Kangs being involved in Wolverine's backstory would have made the movie a hell of a lot better, if you ask me. So this version of Wolverine X-Men team had come into conflict with the Council of Kangs. 3 members included Immortus, Ramata, and the Sanctorium were responsible for killing the entire X-Men team. Now, that would have made a lot more sense and would have actually, drawn you into the next Avengers movie even more. As we know, there was supposed to be some scene with Cassandra Nova killing all the X-Men, but that really never happened. Wolverine was scared of Immortus and the Kangs. He ran away when the X-Men needed him most. Now, if they were going to go forward with the Kang storyline, obviously, I'm talking hypothetically, they're not going to, that would have made a lot of sense, and it would have made the audience more invested going forward with other Marvel movies. This is why the public in Wolverine's universe hated him so much. With the X-Men gone, crime and corruption arose in society, while Wolverine instead chose to become an alcoholic. Originally, the TVA wanted Wolverine to join their mission in rounding up superheroes and anchor beings powerful enough to fight the Council of Kangs. Deadpool wanted to prove to the TVA that even the worst Wolverine can redeem himself and face off with the Kangs, which that still happened. They just did it a completely different way. So Deadpool wanted to prove even the worst Wolverine can redeem himself and face off against the Kang. Initially, Wolverine rejected the idea, but by the end, after defeating Cassandra Nova, Wolverine accepted TVA's mission. So essentially, that's why the backstory for Wolverine did feel a bit flat. There was no connective tissue to the greater story. And I believe somewhat this does have a lot of precedence and it does have a lot of credibility, because before they scrapped the whole Kang storyline, there must have been something in this movie that connected back to Kang. but there wasn't, which is really weird. They could have even thrown Doom in, because then they revealed Doctor Doom 2 days later after the movie originally came out. Robert Downey Jr. signed on months ago. They didn't just randomly sign him last minute and throw him on stage like some people seem to thought. So apparently the origins of Immortus and Jonathan Majors scrapped scenes from Agatha all along. And this is what was going to happen. And this is why I say I don't put any scooper on different level to anyone else, because yes, this post was community noted, but the biggest Twitter scooper that people say are the most credible gets community noted all the time, gets things wrong all the time, and yet people say they're really credible. So going forward, I'm not putting any scooper above anyone else, because at the end of the day, you're all using Reddit. But this information does sound pretty cool, and I'll tell you if I think it's real or not. It just seems pretty cool. The origins for Immortus were intended to be dark and shown during a critical moment from when Agatha and the Covenant of Witches are making their way through the Witches' Road and trials. Immortus' origin. Immortus was born into a slave family that practices witchcraft in ancient Egypt at the time. Is under the rule of, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, Apocalypse and his followers. His mother is part of an ancient covenant of witches. Immortus' best friend, another slave girl around his age, a variant of Ravonna Renslayer. I mean, you could say that's a bit ironic, but let's just go with it. Immortus' mother and the other witches in the covenant started the rebellion against Apocalypse and the Four Horsemen. Immortus' mother dies in his arms during a battle, and she warns his son not to repeat his mistake and to leave the mutants in peace. Now, this is where Immortus' hate for mutants and superhero began. This also explains why Immortus and the Council of Kangs went to war with the X-Men and the original X-Men 97 Season 2 plans, along with Wolverine's backstory involving Immortus from Deadpool and Wolverine. So far, there isn't anything massively far-fetched. Immortus authors the Dark Hold. Okay, that's completely wrong. It's already been explained who authors the Dark Hold in Multiverse of Madness. And as you know, I made a bunch of videos saying the Elder God, Chthon, was going to appear. And the Chthon is the author of the Dark Hold. But I'm not saying discredits of information, but Marvel could have retconned stuff. Hell, Marvel retcon stuff all the time. Immortus is sent into the desert by the Covenant of Witches. He eventually reaches Warstu and begins commuting with the dark entities at the mountain and his ancestors. Immortus encounters Chthon, and in Multiverse of Madness, I said Chthon was the author of the Dark Hold, or the original maker, and the dark entity known as Dimir, who controls all the magic in the entire multiverse. Chthon wants to use Immortus' body as a vessel. Chthon grants Immortus the ability to speak and become his personal scribe. Chthon helps him delve deeper into the world of dark witchcraft and the multiverse. I mean, it doesn't sound too far-fetched, but let's just go with it. Immortus learns his variants and is forbidden to make contact with them. Wanted to make contact with his variants, Immortus begins plotting to bring together his destiny. No, I'm joking. His dynasty in secret. After immersing enough power, Immortus ends up destroying Chthon and conquering the dark entities that haunt the mountain. Immortus looks into the future and prevents his death by authoring the Dark Hold to eventually trick and corrupt Wanda. Now, this plot does sound pretty cool. I'm not saying I agree that it's true, but it does sound pretty damn cool. The continuing influences of the Dark Hold corrupt Immortus' body, changing it to dark blue color, and his eyes burn bright yellow, which we've seen in the Ant-Man 3 post-credit scene. Believing in his divinity and wishes to make contact with his variant, Immortus emerges from Warstu and seeks out his other Kang variants in the multiverse. Interesting. Then there's a bit more information, background info, and plans. These were scenes that Jonathan Major filmed back in January and February 2021. He filmed these scenes at around the same time. The mid-credit scene for Quantumania was filmed less than a month after he was arrested. These scenes have since been cut, but Marvel possibly will release them one day. Another possibility is they could have turned these elements in the show to introduce Doctor Doom and his origins. Now, like I said, I'm no longer going to give any scooper precedence over anyone else because they all get stuff wrong. They all get stuff right. But either way, these ideas sounding pretty cool. Immortus being introduced makes complete sense. Would have been pretty cool. If this is the case, they could flip it and just change it all for Doctor Doom if they really wanted to go down that route. I know there's a lot of people saying how they're going to introduce Doom, how Doom's going to get his powers. I mean, Doom getting his powers from the Dark Hold or something like that could be interesting. We don't know, but it would have been cool if they were to introduce all the Kangs separately before we got to Kang's Dynasty. That would have been a pretty cool way. Like I say, based on the comments on the last video we did on the origin plans for what Kang Dynasty potentially could have been, I think a lot of people may like this kind of information. So that is the reason I went over it. And as I said, the Deadpool and Wolverine backstory for Wolverine and why he failed his Wolverine didn't really make much sense. Didn't make much sense how there was no connective tissue to a greater multiverse, seeing as we're in a multiversal saga. Yes, I did enjoy Deadpool and Wolverine, but it could have connected to the multiverse and Avengers 5 so much more, and it would have been so bad. So likewise, guys, let me know, do you believe this? Do you believe they did have plans to introduce Immortus in the Agatha TV show? Do you think they had better plans with Wolverine and Wolverine was scared of the Kangs? It would have made sense because they are freaking OP. So like always, guys, check us out on Instagram at Warstu, check us on Twitter, Warstu, and I'll catch you in another video, guys. Very soon, catch you later.